Over the past year, linked CCP documents, internal speeches, and Chinese-only sources have shown that the Chinese Communist Party, headed by Xi Jinping, has redoubled its efforts in the biggest religious repression in China since the Cultural Revolution. But for the non-Chinese world, the CCP under Xi's leadership shows a different story, pretending that the spiritual repression is non-existent while quietly pulling strings behind the scenes and even making English-speaking media follow CCP narratives and carry out attacks on the CCP's behalf. So what's behind this complex, two-faced strategy? Hello China watchers, the CCP's politics is always complicated. It's usually opaque and often ridiculous to outside watchers, but we're here to break it down for you. My name is Ben Hedges, and if you like knowing what's really going on in China, then subscribe to this channel to keep up with the most gripping news and current affairs stories happening in China. Okay, so let's get into it. The CCP's national security apparatus uses the term maintaining national political security as its top priority. Keep in mind that's political security, not national security to prevent attacks against the nation or social security to protect the health and rights of citizens. Political security is the CCP's top priority, and that is a euphemism for maintaining the CCP's complete stronghold on power over the entire nation and people of China. And over the past few years, dozens of leaked CCP directives, work reports, and development plans issued by local governments in at least 12 provinces have linked religious repression of residents who practice the Falun Gong spiritual discipline with safeguarding national security, state security, political security, and national political security. For example, then Minister of Public Security Zhao Kezhi delivered a speech to the leaders of China's rubber stamp parliament, noting that the public security apparatus had worked hard to, quote, make full use of legal weapons and methods to severely crack down on the activities of Falun Gong and resolutely defend the country's political security. Since 2021, Zhao and others have also explicitly prioritized severely cracking down on Falun Gong and sometimes included other ethnic and religious communities at press conferences held by the Ministry of Public Security. At its internal events, the Ministry of Public Security is given the Falun Gong crackdown top priority, even before mentioning other major CCP security concerns like anti-corruption and counterterrorism. Another example of this is a massive nationwide petition campaign that the CCP launched in 2023, run by the CCP's Political and Legal Affairs Committee, which is the department that has long been at the forefront of the CCP's campaign against Falun Gong. China's state-run media have bragged that public security organs in 31 provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities, the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, 285 prefecture-level cities and more than 2,500 counties and townships have implemented promotions for this petition, and in some regions they've gone as far as publicizing it using interactive games like this one, where Falun Gong is listed as the first of 25 banned spiritual groups, and users get a Guardian Medal of Honor when they complete the petition. They've taken the petitions to video gamers, businesses, workplaces, airports, and even schools, where students and teachers are required to sign propaganda banners and listen to lectures that demonize Falun Gong and other banned religious groups. This document was issued by the Wenzhou Longwan District No. 3 Kindergarten and required parents to promise that they would lead, quote, civilized families who do not believe in religion, do not participate in any religious activities, and do not teach religion to children. Similar documents were issued to other kindergartens too. So rather than encouraging any form of spirituality like what all of China did before the Communist Party took control, parents are being forced to commit to nurturing children with faith in socialism and the CCP only. And this mass campaign is still active this year. Village committees in Sichuan reported holding more than 70 anti-Falun Gong events. The Haidong Public Security Bureau in Qinghai Province held over 20 publicity events about the petition. The campaign has been big in Tianjin as well. Tianjin is where the extra-legal police task force, the 610 office, is headquartered. which is responsible for carrying out the mission of eliminating Falun Gong both within China and via transnational repression abroad. Tianjin's local public security bureau website published a total of 41 articles over an 8-month period to promote the petition and jointly launched an event with multiple Dongli District Committee departments, including the National Security Office and the Political and Legal Affairs Committee, in the main lobby of a 3-story mall with 12 booths that reportedly distributed over 5,000 promotional materials in one day. The event also featured a theatrical and aerobics performance in the theme of Say No to Heretics. Anhui province also featured theatrical performances too. So what does religious repression, and specifically repression of Falun Gong, have to do with national public security? And why is the CCP creating new initiatives to, quote, wipe out Falun Gong now? And why don't we hear about this in any English-speaking media or reports? Well, it is a top national security priority for the regime to make the world think that they are not still persecuting Falun Gong. According to the FBI, this year the PRC government has designated the Falun Gong as one of the top 5 threats to its rule. In China, Falun Gong adherents face a range of repressive and punitive measures from the PRC government, including imprisonment and torture. Through these new initiatives to crack down on Falun Gong, the CCP, under Xi Jinping's leadership, is implicitly admitting to the embarrassing reality that its effort to wipe out Falun Gong has categorically failed. On the contrary, the 25-year repressive campaign has galvanized tens of millions of ordinary Chinese people into becoming grassroots human rights and freedom of information activists. Since then leader Jiang Zemin banned and vowed to eliminate Falun Gong in 1999, all across China, millions of Falun Gong practitioners have printed and distributed homemade leaflets exposing the persecution they face and the tyrannical nature of the CCP. They've been debunking the state-run propaganda and lies about Falun Gong practice, and they have not only persisted under seemingly impossible circumstances, but they've succeeded in opening the eyes and hearts of countless Chinese citizens to the wicked nature of the CCP, and reminded them of their ancient Chinese roots in spirituality and tradition. The very existence of peaceful Falun Gong practitioners after the CCP launched its worst instance of religious persecution since the Cultural Revolution and vowed to eliminate Falun Gong 25 years ago but failed, is proof to Chinese citizens and the world that the CCP is not all-powerful and all-correct, as they always say they are. It shows a weakness in the CCP armor that faith and human spirit is stronger than the CCP's iron fist. And this weakness has been passed on to Xi Jinping, who has now taken up the baton since the CCP is under his leadership. Since Xi took power in 2012 and inherited Jiang Zemin's brutal legacy of starting and then failing to eliminate Falun Gong, the CCP has expanded the persecution of Falun Gong overseas. In 2015, then Public Security Chief Meng Jianzhu described the urgent need to, quote, treat the countries and regions with serious Falun Gong activities, such as the United States, as the main battlefield. He specifically cited the, quote, overseas struggle and online struggle as the weak parts of the regime's anti-Falun Gong campaign, calling on officials to tackle key problems in these areas. He also said we must seize the opportunity of Western countries' rising demand for us, meaning closer economic and political ties with China, and push the concerned countries to ban or restrict the activities of Falun Gong. Since then, speeches and local and provisional government documents have echoed his words and repeated strategies for carrying out the directives from Beijing. Leaked documents from Henan, Shanxi, Hubei, Jiangxi, and Hunan provinces show in-depth investigations collecting extensive intelligence about Falun Gong practitioners overseas. Directives from Henan province go further, urging the use of sister city relationships to effectively reduce Falun Gong activities outside of China. They call for cultivating non-governmental forces such as scholars, journalists, and overseas Chinese community leaders to speak for us, that is, speak for the CCP, and to make more foreign media publish more reports favorable to us. And that has seemed to have worked to some extent, as researchers have documented that since 2015, misinformation and falsehoods depicting Falun Gong negatively have appeared more often in Western news outlets and global social media platforms than ever before. But the story doesn't stop there. In June this year, leaked reports from a meeting of the Ministry of Public Security stated that the regime's goal is to, quote, fully eliminate Falun Gong worldwide. And the CCP's latest attack plans were also clearly stated: mobilize concerned agents to create and escalate the internal conflicts of Falun Gong, to expand non-stop the fighting strength, depth, and reach of social media influencers targeting Falun Gong and Shen Yun. They must attract continuous attention of the entire United States society and force the US government to strike on all fronts, eliminating the force of Falun Gong. And it seems that the CCP's concealed agents have been carrying out these orders. This year, Shen Yun Performing Arts, a successful American company founded by Chinese refugee artists who practice Falun Gong and who would be persecuted if they returned to China, has seen a massive rise in threats to theaters, to performers, attacks on tour buses like slashing bus tires, and other forms of harassment by CCP actors on American soil. Shen Yun has faced harassment since their inception because the company prides itself on reviving traditional Chinese culture, which is rooted in China's traditional faiths and spirituality, which the CCP has worked for decades to eradicate in China. And Shen Yun also includes dances that depict modern stories of repression under the regime, including the persecution of Falun Gong. Plus the fact that Shen Yun has grown to 8 touring companies that tour the world simultaneously, reaching 200 cities and more than 1 million audience members every year, is perhaps the biggest example of Jiang Zemin's and now Xi Jinping's massive failure, because Falun Gong practitioners have refused to go underground and are sharing Chinese culture with the world outside of China's borders in a big way without the CCP's help. And Shen Yun's tagline, after all, is China before communism. Ouch. No wonder this is the biggest thorn in the CCP's side. The FBI recently arrested 2 Chinese nationals, John Chen and Lin Feng, as unregistered agents of the People's Republic of China, conspiring to bribe and bribing a public official, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. As part of the PRC's campaign against the Falun Gong, Chen and Feng engaged in a PRC government-directed scheme to manipulate the IRS whistleblower program in an effort to strip the tax-exempt status of an entity run and maintained by Falun Gong practitioners, the Shen Yun Performing Arts Center. Chen, on a recorded call, explicitly noted that the purpose of paying these bribes, which were directed and funded by the PRC government, was to carry out the PRC government's aim of toppling the Falun Gong. John Chen was sentenced to 20 months in prison and Lin Feng to 16 months. Then a Chinese YouTuber who was named by the Ministry of Public Security as an individual who should receive the regime's support boasted on X that he introduced former disgruntled Shen Yun performers to the New York Times. This boast came just days after the New York Times, which has visibly underreported the persecution of Falun Gong in China since its top editorial staff met with Jiang Zemin in 2001, published a series of articles on Shen Yun Performing Arts that followed the CCP's narratives and featured a handful of disgruntled ex-performers who the Beijing-backed YouTuber took credit for connecting them with. Notably, one of the authors of the New York Times series of distorted reports on Shen Yun is Nicole Hong, whose father, George Hong, was given the honorary title of 10 Outstanding Overseas Scholars Who Serve China on the CCP's Zhejiang Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese website. The website also stated that he was an honorary overseas director of the Western Returned Scholars Association. This website was removed from public access after an investigator revealed the connections between his background to his daughter's articles that appear to follow the CCP's leaked directives. George was reported denying being connected to the CCP, but web archives tell a different story. And the Zhejiang Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese falls under the All China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese, whose published charter is to act as a pivotal link and connector between the party, the government, and the extensive community of returned overseas Chinese, their relatives, and compatriots abroad. Not surprisingly, out of the 6 former performers photographed by the New York Times for Nicole Hong's articles, at least 3 of them have ties to the Beijing Dance Academy, whose leadership has also strong ties with the CCP. In their English communications, the Beijing Dance Academy do not disclose their CCP ties. But in Chinese-facing communications, Virtually the entire leadership have clear roles within the party, and none of these connections were disclosed in any of the New York Times reports. This is another example of how the CCP carries out one control strategy for targeting Chinese citizens and another control strategy for targeting overseas non-Chinese, which sometimes works in duping the media, academics, and people in positions of power to do the CCP's bidding and speak for the CCP, either knowingly or blindly. But there are still many examples of experts seeing through the CCP's power struggles, such as history professor and China expert Arthur Waldron, who said after watching a live performance by Shen Yun Performing Arts,
of course, been a student of China for 40 years. This reminded me of why I chose that, because this is the authentic treasure that Chinese civilization contains. And as I watch those dancers and I listen to the music, I think this is incredibly good. It's world standard. These people can do anything.
Waldron says the tremendous success that this Shen Yun is having around the world shows that the battle between despotism, false culture, lack of morality, and virtuous rule, study of goodness, self-cultivation, there's no question who will win.
If you did a tour of China, which someday you'll be able to do, I don't know if I'm going to live to see it, that the people would pack in and they would cheer.
I hope Arthur Waldron is right and that Shen Yun Performing Arts will one day be free again to depict Chinese spirituality on stage in China, as well as true stories from our time that show the brutality under the CCP. But until then, the CCP's campaign against spirituality and Falun Gong is far from over. Just this month, Bitter Winter reported that 2 men got respectively 7 and 7.5 years in prison for keeping books of the banned movement in their homes. And as the magazine on religious liberty and human rights said it, we should not become accustomed to it. Spending 7 years or more in a Chinese jail just for practicing one's faith is not normal. So when do you think we'll see normal again in China? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you would like to see Chinese spirituality and classical Chinese dance on stage for yourself and make up your own mind what you think of it, why not see Shen Yun Performing Arts for yourself? They're about to embark on a world tour and may be coming to a city near you. And we have a special deal only for our viewers. You can click the link below to check out the trailer, and if you do go on to buy tickets, use our code CI2025 at checkout for a waived booking fee, and that's available on all US dates. It'll save you about $5 to $8 on your booking. Link for that is below. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.